Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to all of our attendees tuning in from around the world. Today's broadcast of Invisible Women in Sport is an Institute for Sport and Social Justice production. I'm your producer, Garnett L. Overby III. All guests will be muted during this production, but I encourage you to use the chat feature to ask a question or leave a comment. We will reserve time at the end to answer your questions. So now, without further ado, I would like to welcome our host, Candace Martin.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Season 3, Episode 9 of Invisible Women in Sport, and I'm your host, Candace Martin. Today, you are all in for a very special treat as I get the chance to sit down with Miss Tiffany D. Tucker, Deputy Athletic Director and SWA at the University of North Carolina, Wilmington. Tiffany, how are you doing today?
Candace, good to see you. I'm so excited. You all have no clue. I followed your podcast and have listened to so many awesome people. And whatever I can do, of course, to continue to support you all. I know a couple of you are soon to be grads. So plug for anybody that's looking to hire. But I'm so happy to be here. One, happy Pride Month. Look, my birthday's next week, so I'm celebrating happy birthday, but I'm just so happy to be here. And thank you all again for reaching out and having me.
Very nice. And we're equally as excited to have you here. So I need to ask, did you make the Cancer cut or are you a Gemini?
I am on the cusp. Mm-hmm. I'm June 21st. I'm on the cusp.
Okay.
So I'm both. I know, they show up at certain times of the day or weeks. You never know.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. We love them all.
Yeah.
All righty. So I told you in the pre-screen that we would do one of two icebreakers, either two truths and a lie or rapid fire. I think we're going to do two truths and a lie.
You sure about that?
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to start my timer for 30 seconds and I'll go first. And then everyone, you will put which statement you believe is a lie in the chat. And then once we finish with me, then Tiffany will throw it over to you. Sound good?
All right. Sound good.
Very nice. My timer going. All righty. First one is my favorite chocolate candy. It's Reese's. I have been out of the country twice. I flew on a plane for the first time in college. All right, friends. So put which statement you believe is a lie in the chat for us. See what we get rolling in. Patrick says the candy. Okay. Let's see. Anyone else want to take a stab at it? What you think, Tiffany?
I'm thinking a plane.
You think the plane?
Mm-hmm. I'm thinking a plane. Because were you an athlete?
I was.
You definitely. I'm like,
Okay, we got another that kind of chose both. So one was my favorite chocolate candies, Reese's. The second was I've been out of the country twice. And the third is that my first time flying on a plane was in college. I hate to chop up your name. I think it's Myra. She chose two. So she was like, I'm not getting it wrong regardless. So I'm going to choose two. I'm going to put them together. And then that's how we're going to roll.
Like she right either way.
Like either way, I got it right. All right, friends. So the lie, let me look back to see what it is. So the lie is that I have been out of the country twice. I have only been out of the country one time, and that was to Punta Cana, DR, a couple of weeks ago, and I had a great time. I did fly on a plane for the first time in college.
Really?
I did. Volleyball tournament, surrounded by teammates, and it was a grand old time.
Nice. Oh, no, my first time was in high school. We when I played on the AAU program, and we flew from Virginia to Texas.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that was the first time. I was like,
oh yeah.
Lord. Yeah.
And takeoff still doesn't sit well with me. I really do not like to take off.
No, I just go to sleep. I just go to sleep.
Absolutely. All right, Tiffany, it's on you now.
You ready?
Yeah.
All right. So my first one is my first car was a Honda Accord. My second one is I'm a former corrections officer. And my last one is I have a dog named Caesar.
It's the face for me. The poker face. But I don't know what it is.
And Myra cannot answer because she knows.
That's so not fair.
I'm going with the dog.
Okay, Candace. Candace is the dog.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Taylor's here. Hi, Taylor.
Hey, Taylor.
Tyler's last season's host.
Ah, yeah. Yes.
All right. Maya says correction officer. Iane says correction officer.
Mm-hmm.
Jessica Freeman says dog. Taylor says dog.
Mm-hmm.
Wait on a few more to go. Look at Taylor. Hi, Taylor. All righty, Tiffany. Tell us which one is the lie. Which one is it?
I no longer have a dog named Caesar. I had a dog named Caesar.
All right, so you have to tell us about the correction officer story.
I know. You're like, what do you mean? And this is him, if you guys could see. That's what he looked like. But somebody stole my dog. Long story. Yeah, so after I graduated college, I worked in the mental health space for a while and ended up getting pretty much poached over to Central Prison in Raleigh to become a mental health corrections officer. So we did a lot of evaluations, not your typical corrections stuff, but we did a lot of just work around mental health and making sure that our inmates were being rehabilitated, making sure they had the necessary medications, and yeah.
All right, very nice.
So I was a gun carrying. I'm joking. No, we didn't have guns. I had a radio.
Top flight security of the world. We love it.
Top flight.
All right, Tiffany, so we're going to jump right in. So
let's do it.
Met a couple days ago in the pre-screen, and you pretty much told me how you got yourself started in the sport industry outside. Mm-hmm. You know, we didn't talk about the correctional officer, but it's a nice touch. But, you know, you talked about how, you know, Pops told you, all right, we need to zone in on a sport. Let's choose a sport. And, you know, you ultimately chose basketball, and you were fortunate enough to be able to play at the University of North Carolina. So pretty much tell us what your journey was like from that point, you know, from being a student athlete, then where did it take you? What doors did it open up for you?
Yeah, so having an opportunity to play in high school, definitely a 3-sport athlete. And like you said, my dad was like, you've got me driving all up and down 95, 74, 64. Let's figure it out. Mm-hmm. So basketball I honed in on, and we had an amazing season in high school, a few seasons in high school, and had an amazing coach, Charles Payton, who had played on a collegiate level at a very high level. So it was one of the reasons I chose to go to that high school, and had an opportunity. Sylvia Hatchell gave me a scholarship, and I played 4 years at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and just 2 ACC championships, 4-time appearance in the NCAA tournament. You're talking about just been a blessing, like having an opportunity to travel outside of the country. Like my dad said, I'm going to ride this pigskin as long as I can, because it's like you said, it's opened so many doors for me. And once I transitioned out of college and matriculated, and I had to figure out what was next. And of course, like I told you, I went into the mental health space, which I love because I have an undergraduate degree in philosophy. I started out in psychology, but they weren't listening to me when I talked, but they were listening to me across the street in the philosophy department. So that's where I went and learned how to argue, and learned how to just hone my voice. And I've always had a presence for caring for people. And that's kind of how I got started in that realm, and had an opportunity to meet Wanda Wade. who played at NC State, played women's basketball at NC State. She was coaching an AAU program and needed some help. And there I go. I started coaching 13-year-old boys in AAU, and it was so much fun. And of course, I got the coaching bug, went back, had a conversation with my coach, and I was like, Coach, I really want to get into coaching. Like, how do I start? Like, where do I go? And she's like, of course, you got to apply. And, you know, I'm coming from North Carolina, so I'm thinking I can just jump in. You know, I can jump in Power 5. Meanwhile, I had to crawl before I walked. and applied. And this is part where I'll kind of take you a little fast because I know we're on time constraint, but had an opportunity to go start with Kate Costanzo, she was a first-time head coach at Allegheny College. Left there, coached at Radford as an assistant, went to Francis Marion in South Carolina after that, had an opportunity to be a head coach at Claflin University. And once I transitioned from Claflin to Elizabeth City State is kind of where I put a pause in it, because that's when the transition happened from being a coach to full-time part-time administration into full-time administration.
Absolutely.
So that part, so I had an opportunity while I was at Claflin to work with Ruben Perez, he was a deputy commissioner at the SIAC, and he had me in literally everything, whether it was advocating for head coaches, whether it was compliance matters. He had gotten me an opportunity to be on the the NCAA Regional Advisory Committee. And I started to really like this stuff. You know, I had taken some leadership development courses with Women Leaders in College Sports, which was formerly NACWA. And at this time, I'm getting the administration bug. So when I went over to Elizabeth City, started doing, was coaching full-time, ended up being an associate head women's basketball coach, ended up head coaching women's tennis, ended up head coaching volleyball, and doing administrative work. And that's actually where I met Myra Blow, who's on today. She was our SWA and our deputy athletics director at Elizabeth City State. And at that point, met with my mentors and of course my best friend who was already in the industry, and I knew I needed a master's degree, and I had started taking courses while I was at Elizabeth City State with all 5 of those other jobs. So I had made the conscious decision to apply at Hampton, and ended up going to school full-time, getting my master's degree, and working full-time in the athletics department in a host of different seats. And shout out to Jean Marshall and Paula Jackson, who literally gave me an opportunity to do whatever it was that I wanted. And then, of course, I graduated, realized I was not making enough money to pay back my student loan from a master's degree. So I had to figure it out, and had an opportunity to meet with Stacey Danley, who was the new AD at South Carolina State. Did some amazing things there in the fundraising area and in the football area. And 18 months later, met with Adrienne Sweeney, who was transitioning out of this role. And she, you know, of course, told me about how awesome Wilmington was. And for the last 3.5 years, it's been home and it's been amazing. Like my AD is absolutely amazing. My staff, my student athletes, I couldn't ask for a better team of people.
Absolutely. It's so awesome, Tiffany. So I do want to backtrack a little bit. So you took that coaching position that we talked about a couple of days ago, and it was a significant pay cut in the role that you were holding previously. Yes. So tell the viewers about that experience and why ultimately you decided to take that coaching position while you were also taking a pay cut.
So you want to talk about the dirty stuff? You want to? Yeah. Well, let's do it. So, you know, I'm very transparent in my story, and sometimes with that, people can think it seems boastful, but I'll tell you this: I'm not where I was. And yes, I did. I was making very good money when I was in the private sector, and when I made the conscious decision to take the job at Allegheny College, I was making only $19,000 working full time. And if anybody knows what a coach does, is well over $19,000 worth of work. However, I started doing that, and I picked up a part-time job. I ended up being almost full-time because I was working like 5 nights out of the week because I had this training as a mental health counselor, I worked at a group home in town at night. Yeah. So I literally was working around the clock. But I knew if this is where my passion was leading me, and I couldn't find myself thinking about anything else than coaching these young guys that I had. So I knew I had to step outside of what I knew was comfortable to take the position and at least try. And I'm gonna be honest with you, Candace, I'm a hustler. I'm gonna figure it out.
Yep.
You know, absolutely. I'm gonna figure it out. I just bought a new Camry too. I had a new car. I had all these things, but I knew if I was going to really pursue my passion, I knew I was going to have to take a pay cut, but also, like you said, just figure it out. And just to help like new grads and people who may have to go down that road. One of the lessons that I learned from it was I should have been a little bit more intentional, but I will say I was living in Meadville, Pennsylvania. There weren't a lot. I mean, we had the Steelers who was probably an hour and 15 minutes away. But if you have an opportunity to take a position as a graduate student or a first year intern at like a Georgia Tech, and Atlanta has a buffet of options, whether it's in the sport or entertainment area, and try to, if I got to take this position over here, maybe I can find something part-time, working with the Falcons or working with the Hawks, or trying to put it together. And then two, advocating for the resources that a school has on campus. So if I'm a graduate student, I need housing, food. I can figure out the rest of the things, but those big two, if you say, hey, I'm fresh out of undergrad, I really don't have the resources to take this position, but I want to do it. My passion is here. Is there any way that you all can pay for housing, or is there any way that I can eat on campus? Asking and advocating for the things that you need. But I like I said, if you were anything like me, I didn't know to ask for that, because I would have. If I take that job at Allegheny, the job at Bradford, the job at Francis Marion, all three of those, I would have asked for housing. I would have asked for at least a vehicle stipend, because I was using my own vehicle for recruiting, and meals on campus, because that would have been able to supplement the pay that I was receiving, and I didn't necessarily have to purchase groceries in town or pay for housing outside of campus.
Absolutely. So being able to ask, especially I know like Black women, oftentimes we aren't coming up and just asking, and just accepting the no. If it's gonna be a no, that's cool. The worst thing you can tell me is no, but just know I asked.
Worst thing they can tell you is no. But I'll say this too: you have positions now that my eyes are more open to what an institution has at their fingertips. We are working with student affairs and maybe working with someone in housing, and hey, Candace is an awesome grad student. She's going to work over in athletics. Is there any way that she can be one of your RAs, in one of your buildings, and put a package together? Absolutely. I'm so grateful for the collaboration we have on this campus, that we can possibly put some things together for someone, especially if that's the person we want. You'll figure it out. But like I too, be having your eyes open to the possibilities of what the things are, and what's at your disposal as far as resources is huge. But like I said, you got to ask.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So you have seen three sides of the sports space. You've been a student athlete, you've been a coach in multiple different levels, different roles, and now an administrator. Yeah. So how do you believe that your experience as a student athlete, as a head coach, as an assistant coach, has impacted your ability to be able to serve your coaches, staff, student athletes that are now looking up to Miss Tiffany D Tucker today?
Like that name just rolls.
You like that?
Candace, I promise you, I've done it right. I've done it wrong. When I was a freshman at Carolina, I tore my ACL. My first head coaching position, I got fired. Like I've failed, but I've had some really, really, really good times. And I've learned a lot of lessons along the way. And those are all the things that I bring to what I do now. My student athletes, when they see me, I talk, of course, I'm one of those people who talk about the good old days, but I also want them to know that they can relate to me, that I've laced them up just like you've laced them. Mm-hmm. You know, I've had to get up in the morning and do weights when I really didn't want to. You know, our nutritionist here that works with my students is my nutritionist when I was at UNC Chapel Hill. Oh, wow. So, you know, like just all of these, like you're just, of course, a combination of all your experiences, but having building relationships with coaches is huge, because one, they can't pull the wool over my eyes. And two, they understand that I've had to sit in the seat that they sit in. So I make decisions from a different lens, and I listen, you know, because one of the things I know when I was coaching, I always just if someone would listen to me sometimes, you may not take my suggestion, but just having an ear and being open, but just bringing all of those things to the table. Carla Harris is an amazing woman. If you don't follow her on YouTube or anything, she works with Morgan Stanley as an investment banker, and she talks about being a singer in the opera and selling out shows at Carnegie Hall. Meanwhile, she's been a woman on Wall Street for well over 40 years. Wow. And she talks about being able to bring all of those things to the table, because you never know what's going to hit home with a client. My coaches bring recruits in my office all the time, and I talk about all of these experiences. So you may not know what hits grandma, and then what hits the player, and then dad, and then the AAU coach that they bring with them. You never know what story ties them back to saying, you know what, I'm going to send my son or my daughter to UNCW. Same thing with our coaches, and especially with mental health and work-life integration and making sure that we're taking care of ourselves. I share my stories. I share where I did things very, very wrong, and I share the ones where I knocked them out of the park, because I want my coaches to know you're human. You're going to err. But the insanity part is trying to do that same thing over and over and over and over and over and over again. Absolutely. You know, so, you know, you bring all of those experiences because you want people to know, one, that I'm just here to help. I'm here to serve as an advisor. I'm here to advocate. I'm here to stand in the gap when you can. So.
Yeah, so you talked about some of your roles and responsibilities that you kind of take on currently. So now I want to talk about some of those other hats that you wear. So you are currently a part of the Women's Basketball Rules Committee under the NCAA's umbrella. So tell us about some of those roles and responsibilities that you work on with that team or committee of individuals.
So with the Rules Committee, all we do is look at playing rules, playing rules, practice rules. That's it. We do not control anything else outside of that, because I've heard so many questions before. Well, can you talk to them about? Can you tell? Like, no, we honestly just look at playing rules under the auspices of the prop committee. Some awesome people from around the country is on there. We just voted in a new president, but honestly, you know, one of the biggest things that people talk about in the men and women's basketball game, and I want to say the men rolled out their memo last week about having a rule on flopping, and everybody talks about flopping. You know, that's one of the points of emphasis that we will definitely look at over the course of next year. Yeah. This is my first year, so this year wasn't a rule change year, so it was more or less getting acclimated and talking about some of the historical pieces on how some of the legislation and how some of the proposals have come to the table. When we talk about the electronics on the bench, you know, we talked about the restricted area and the lower box area. All of these things have some level of history, and I'm grateful that it wasn't a rule change year, because that gave me an opportunity to really figure out where's all this coming from? Of course, I go to games, I see the flopping. There was a proposal that came before us about possibly changing the 30-second clock to 24 seconds. So we, like I said, we look at all the playing rules, and like I said, a great group of coaches, administrators, and officials from around the country. So I'm looking forward to next year, because we get to move some things. So we'll see how that game shapes up.
Absolutely. So I don't know about you, but I'm an NCAA postgraduate intern. And so I was in the championship operations department, but I was also assisting or interning for the rules committee. And I was like, so there's actually a group of people that actually sits and does this. Anytime my head coach would argue a rule, I'm standing 10 toes behind her. She's correct.
She is.
Like there are actually rules written out in a book.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a new appreciation. I grew an appreciation for the team that sits behind and goes into developing and listening to the proposals or reading the proposals and trying to make the game, continue to evolve the game, whatever sport that may be. My sport was volleyball. I tried basketball. Come on, I couldn't do it.
You already had the hand-eye foot coordination. Come on.
I couldn't do it, Tiffany. I couldn't do it. It was too much of a contact sport, and I realized there were women bigger than me.
Oh, well, see, I was a middle blocker in volleyball, so.
Me too. But that was a net.
But it's something about blocking a shot that just gives you this. A woman hear me roar. I should.
I agree, and I love to see it. Every time I see it on TV, it brings me to my feet. I love it. But me doing it, get up and down the court. Up and down the court.
Oh, you can run it. Yeah. And
all right.
Unfortunately for post players, we have to go the furthest.
Yes. Yeah, I get to half court. I used to get to half court, and the rest of my team be come back down. I didn't even make it down the court, y'all. Wait on me. All right. So NCAA Rules Committee, we'll sit that hat over to the side. And so you're also the chair for Colonial Athletic Association Family United for Change Committee. So I wanted to see if there are any initiatives that you have seen through or that you're currently working on that you'd like to discuss and bring light to today.
Now, this is one of those committees that just pulls at your heartstrings, because one, we talk about United, we talk CAA family. That's what we are first and foremost. But then we talk about the United for Change. And we're not just talking about Black issues. We're not just talking about brown issues. We're talking about LGBTQIA. We're talking about disability. We're talking about all of the things under the auspices of what being united for change really means. And with our committee, our commissioner sits on our committee, our deputy commissioner, pretty much everyone in our CAA office is at the table with a voice, because they want to hear. One, we've got administrators from all of the schools in our league. We have student athletes who sit on the committee. I do a presentation as the chair. I do a presentation before our SAC, and anything that they bring back, of course, I'm bringing back to the group. But one of the initiatives that we launched last year was the playing of Lift Every Voice and Sing during our CAA championships. And it's to see tears fall from people's eyes when the song is played at our championships, knows that, you have some type of pride that, we were able to do that for our people. And then, writing the Unity Pledge. And this is a pledge that is spoken at all of our member institutions, reminding us what's important, reminding our fans and the spectators of what's important. And one of the biggest things that I will launch in this next year is the education for our ADID folk. I think it was great to, for the NCAA to have these ADID folk embedded in the department, but we've got to make sure that we educate people and at least have resources, a way to educate themselves, especially if you're in a department and someone and your AD or somebody comes by and be like, hey, you're the new ADID person. Meanwhile, they're looking at you like, I have no clue what that is. So at least, making sure that we're putting tools in the right places so that folk can have education when they need it. But it's a great group, and we've got so many other things. We're doing a demographic survey so that we can make sure that we're celebrating history months, days, weeks, Heritage Month, days and weeks that represent our students.
Absolutely.
So we'll continue, like I said, we'll continue to roll this thing out and launch different initiatives as we need to. But the biggest thing is having just conversation around, disparity and underrepresented and marginalized, and the president, our system, our board of directors, everything that we've put before them has had a unanimous decision. So it's awesome to see everyone gathered together in unity, for unity's sake.
And kind of in that same line, I know you recently did a collaboration with Degree Deodorant. So tell us a little bit about that experience.
Let me tell you, it was so much fun. So Yahoo Sports and Degree reached out to do a partnership about gender equity. And if you follow me on any Instagram, Twitter, I'm all about being unapologetically who I am. I'm a cisgender woman. My pronouns are her, she, her, hers. I love us. And I want to amplify us. I want women to be so confident that they can feel like they can take on the world. And this is not to say that anyone else is less than or they should not have. All I know is I'm 6'5", Candace, and when I show up,
look,
we have a ride.
Yes, we have a ride. And put a heel on. And put a heel on.
And we'll put a heel on.
Yes,
I will definitely put a heel on. But when as a woman, I've met so many women that lack the confidence to, whether it's ask for the raise, to ask for the new position, to ask for a seat at a table or be in a room that they want to be in. I see so many women that are lacking the confidence to do that. And this was an opportunity to, one, use my platform to connect with them, to talk about equal just isn't enough anymore. Equal was fine for 1972. Yep. Equity and making sure that every woman, person, everyone has the access and the tools that they need to be successful wherever they are. Absolutely. Equity means so much right now. And I know, like I said, I hear a lot of talk about equal pay, equal this, equal that. I'm gonna be honest with you, Candace, there's a lot of other people that I'm better than. So I don't want what you pay them because I'm better than them. Period. So it's being, like I said, it's that confidence to know that equals just isn't enough for me. Absolutely. And I want my portion. I want what's owed to me. I want what I've earned. And as simple as that. And we did an awesome piece here. They were willing to do it here on our campus, which I think brought a very, very big spotlight to the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, and just talked about my own experience and talked about, equality and what that really means. Because like I said, it still matters, and what equity really means in this state. We have so many awesome, young, innovative minds and people who are going to look at them and just be like, oh, you're the young person. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't do that. Don't put somebody down to make yourself feel good, because that young person, whether they're 18 or 22, however young they are, can bring something to your organization or your group and think outside of the box, just the same way as someone who identifies in the LGBTQIA community. There may be something that they're doing in their community that can help us, whether it's increase profitability or retain student athletes or whatever the cause is. So you don't discount people, bring them in, and then give them the voice. Let them know that they have power in the room.
Absolutely.
I can talk all day. Stop.
Great way to wrap up our conversation. I have one more question, but before I get there, friends, we are going to have a Q&A with Miss Tiffany D. Tucker. So please put your questions in the chat now to go ahead and get those rolling out so Miss Maya King can read those off and take us through our Q&A. And I will say on the confidence piece, I'm a 5'11", 6-foot woman as well. So, you know, when I step into a room, I have a ride. I'll never forget, I went to a mock interview at a some type of convention or something I was a part of, and a woman told me, she was just like, you know, kind of advice I would give is maybe to not wear heels, because I was so tall, my statue, like, you know, I have a presence. Yes. And so I was, at the time, you know, I was young and I'm being a sponge trying to get into the sport industry. I'm like, okay, well, maybe. But then as I progressed and as I've grown older, I said, no, ma'am, I'm going to put that heel on.
Yes.
I'm going to show up in that room about 6'3".
Yes.
And you're going to know I'm here. And you're going to see my big, pretty smile. And that fro's going to be out, or these braids are going to be in. Just know I have arrived. I'm me. And you're you.
And you're you. Exactly. Let me tell you.
And that's okay.
I promise you, I meet so many women who are, oh my gosh, I love your posture. Mm-hmm. And meanwhile, they're like probably like 5'8", 5'7". And then you have people like whoever told you that you don't need to wear heels. But I was given really good advice, about approaching people, because I'm very friendly and I'm very high energy all the time. So when I approach people, give them an opportunity to receive me, as opposed to me forcing myself on them.
Absolutely.
So whether it's extending my hand, or when I do, if I am approaching someone, give them an opportunity to receive me in that presence. And I love that language, because I love to be received. You know, when we talk about that presence, you want people to receive and be receptive of whatever you're saying. You don't want them to spend their time like, oh my gosh, even though they are.
Yeah.
Because people just can't get it out of there. But like I said, I enjoy being tall, but I also enjoy educating other tall women about the confidence that they should have in themselves and how can they build it. And how, when they walk in a room and wear those heels, you know, long as you don't look like a little baby deer.
Strong.
You said ankle strong.
We're gonna walk around the house a little bit first. We're
gonna break them in.
All right, Miss Tiffany. So last question. We talked about a little bit of the pre-screening. What would you tell a younger Tiffany? What did you wish you knew then that you now know, or that you're beginning to kind of understand a little bit better?
Well, the first thing is I would try to prepare her as much for the loss of her grandmothers at a very young age. I call it very young. I was well into my 20s, but it was a little young for me. And my grandma, both of my grandmothers actually went to church together. And I spent a lot of time with my maternal grandmother, and she raised me and just had a profound effect on my life. And then as her birthday comes up in July, I think back, and I wasn't prepared not to live life without her.
Yeah. And
as I turned 40, it's like, I did not expect to go through this part of life without her. I thought she would be here. So it's just always just a reminder of every moment with the people that you love is precious. Every moment. But then two, don't be afraid to talk to God. I learned the power of prayer a little later, even though I grew up, you know, in the church. Just the power of speaking to God and telling him exactly what I want, and not being afraid to pray big. Like some of the house I aspire to have is, I'll say this, is out of my budget right now, but I know that when I speak to God and I tell him exactly what I want, I know I can have that. Don't play God for small, because he can do all things. And then lastly, always double down on all bets that you make on yourself. Double down on them. I tell my younger self that, because you've got to have the confidence in yourself that you're going to do what you said you were going to do. But when you double down on, and then when I look back over all the things that I've been through, whether it was the good times, the bad times, whether it was, I wouldn't change tearing my ACL because it made me the woman that I am today. Having to go through adversity, having to pick myself up, understanding what mental health looks like, and going to a psychologist for the first time. I have all of these life examples, and now I work in athletics with the national trend being student athlete suicide or suicide. Come on now, you don't make it up, Candace. Yeah. God orchestrates this thing in such a way, but like I said, I don't change it for the world, but always double down on all bets on yourself.
Absolutely. Bet on you. Bet on me.
Bet on you.
We bet.
Double down.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Tiffany, for being transparent and sharing yourself with us today. And now I'm going to throw it over to Maya King for our Q&A.
Okay. Ooh, yep, we're good. All right. So I am going to start off with one of my own questions, and then I'll move on to some questions from the chat. So there's still time.